I think it's easy to see a church as like a single aspect, like, oh, we have a good preacher or a good worship team and like a good service. But at CFC, like through the transitions, it's made it clear that it's the whole thing and like the whole community and experience and just being with the same people every week and learning together and growing together is just what makes CFC what it is.
When we first started coming to CFC, I really loved how I felt people here love Jesus and they really love his people too, and that's kind of what made me want to keep coming back too. And people were just involved in the community and involved in the world, and I wanted to be a part of a church like that.
We've been coming to CFC since day one. We live in Elizabethtown, and when we were looking for churches, we just kept looking in all different areas of Lancaster and Elizabethtown, but we ended up finding this new church that was starting up, so we went to the big CMA where they met for the first couple months, and then they eventually started renting the land or the building at Dairy Road. So for the last 20 years, we've been driving a half hour to CFC.
Wow. And Brandon was only 1 year old at the time, and God had some good things in store for us. One thing we liked about CFC right away was it had relevance, and David always spoke the truth, and we loved hearing that. And I, as a new Christian, I was open to that truth, and I wanted to hear that truth, and I wanted to share that with my family, and it just was a great place to start as a new Christian. One thing about the mobile church was it allowed CFC to grow, and but it took a lot of work because everything was in a truck, all packed up, all the music equipment, the drums, everything. So we'd have to start early, and there'd be like 8 to 10 people there right away to set up the whole church, and then at the end of the service, tear it all down and haul it back to the Dairy Road facility. But the most amazing thing about that is a gentleman that was involved in the setup, I can't remember his name, but he was driving home one day and he saw a truck. It said $15,000 in the window. And he went up to the people and they said, "Are you a church?" And he said, "Yeah." And they ended up giving it to us for $1, which is clearly a God thing. Well, we had plans to buy some land behind Kelly Cadillac. But in the end, God closed the door real quick. So we went and looked for other land, and we found the Bethel property here, but it was like $425,000. And I think it was within 2 years, maybe, within something like that, we had more than that in the bank. It was like unbelievable. God clearly wanted us here for some reason, and he provided. So and then we could build because we had enough money to put down on the land. It was a pretty amazing time, and we would come over to the lot and we'd have church services on the lot in a tent. We had groundbreaking, and we hired a backhoe because David always wanted to drive a backhoe. So we had that hidden in the trees, and we brought it out so he got to break ground with a backhoe, one of his childhood dreams.
Oh, he didn't even know about that?
No, that was all a surprise. Yeah, that was pretty good. And then once we moved in, we started down at the CVS down at their health campus. We all parked down there the first Sunday, and we walked through the development up to the new building. And just to show the journey, it was pretty amazing stuff, really.
Well, when we were looking for a church, Ryan had just been born, and so we wanted to find a church that had a lot of young families. And the great thing about CFC is there are a ton of young families here, and we felt that we could raise our sons here and that they would have lots of friends and other families to connect with, and even older families too that we could learn from and get guidance from too. We thought that was important too to find in a church. My parents just lived down the road, and I remember the CFC building coming up. It was kind of this odd church building, but my dad told me that he was meeting regularly with Pastor David to pray for my brother and his son, and that just really touched me, that when we came back kind of to check this church out again, because the church would take time to pray for the community, and specifically my brother too was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty cool because Lara's dad, didn't go to CFC, but still struck up a relationship with Pastor David somehow.
I just think it's so neat to see the way that God has worked through the church and some of the, particularly the big transitions between Pastor David and Pastor Bobby. You hear stories of other churches that have gone through that kind of thing, and it just sounds like a nightmare. Or you hear stories of some worship teams that just people don't get along, and it's just sort of a tough time for the worship leader to sort of deal with that. But I think it's just neat to see that people are truly seeking after God and want His will for this place, and you can see that it's evident in the history of this church.
And with each change, like when, I guess it started when Rick Rao was leaving, we thought, oh man, we'll never find another music director that's as good as Rick. And then Chuck came along, and when David was leaving, we thought, oh, what's going to happen to the church? And then Bobby, God just keeps placing the right people in the right place at the right time. So it's neat how he just kind of keeps working things out.
I think it was important for us to start serving in our church because it really got us connected. Otherwise, I felt like we were just coming on Sunday and then leaving, and it was hard to meet people that way. So once we started getting involved in the children's ministry, even just meeting people that way, serving on Sunday mornings. CFC has the Wee Clubhouse. We've been coming to that, and when our kids are healthy. But that's been a great way to meet other moms. And the Lydia Center that I do, it's once a month at night, so Pete can watch the boys, and I can do that and meet with other women, and just amazing to see those women grow and to have them here at our church and be able to see them every Sunday, and hopefully they feel like part of our church. And there's lots of different ways I feel like to get connected here. I love that about CFC, that it's not just about our church. We really reach out into the community and serve the world too.
One thing that I think seems unique about CFC is people aren't shy about asking you to serve either. And if they hadn't asked, maybe I wouldn't have done that. I remember a couple years ago, Mike Towers asked if I could help co-lead a high school, like a senior high boys small group on Wednesday nights. It was a great experience. I've got some really strong relationships now with 4 really awesome guys. It's funny how serving blesses you as well as those you're serving.
So many people that have come to know Christ through this place, be it they're here still or not, but they have accepted Christ through CFC. And I want that to happen more and more. And I want just the truth to keep being told to people.
And it's just neat to see all the new young families and think like, oh, that's where we were 20 years ago, and now here they're bringing the toddlers and babies in their little car seats in through church and filling up the nurseries.
And they can't see 20 years down the road like we are now. We didn't know that now like this, we would be like this. But maybe hopefully this will give them some hope, and they stay committed to the truth.